thank you very much. And move on to say that, and then to remind honorable members that the rules and processes apply in this virtual sitting, and remind members particularly of the following: that the virtual sitting constitutes a sitting of the National Council of Provinces, that the place of the sitting is deemed to be Cape Town, where the seat of the National Council of Provinces is, that delegates in the virtual sitting enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Council of Provinces. That for the purpose of the quorum, all delegates who are logged in to the virtual platform are deemed to be present. And that delegates must always switch on their videos. That delegates should ensure that the microphones of their gadgets are muted and must always remain muted. That the table must, of course, ensure that the interpretation facility is active. That any delegate who wishes to speak must use the raise your hand function. By now, I'm sure members are familiar with the raise your hand function. Having gone through this part of our program, we will then move on to the following. Just to inform honorable members that there will be no notices or motions without notice, no notice of motion or motion without notices. And therefore we'll move on to the order of the day. Honorable delegates, we shall now proceed to the first order of the day. That is the consideration of Electoral Laws Amendment Bill B22B 2020 and report of Select Committee on Security and Justice thereon. I now call on Honorable Shaik, Chairperson of the Select Committee, to present the committee report. Honorable Shaik.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members. Honorable Chairperson, the Electoral Laws Amendment Bill B22B 2020, tagged as a Section 75 bill, was referred to the Select Committee on Security and Justice on the 3rd of December 2020. The committee has agreed to the bill with proposed amendments. Briefly, Honorable Chairperson, the Electoral Laws Amendment Bill aims to amend 3 pieces of legislation, namely the Electoral Commission Act 1996, the Electoral Act 1998, and the Local Government Municipal Electoral Act 2000, in preparation for the forthcoming local government elections later this year. The main objectives of the Electoral Laws Amendment Bill is to enhance the existing legislative mechanisms that ensure free and fair elections in accordance with the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, and to align the Electoral Act with the provisions of the Protection of Personal Information Act, or POPI Act, regarding the protection of the personal information of voters against unreasonable disclosure. Honorable Chairperson, the committee received a briefing from the IEC on the bill on the 8th December 2020. The bill was thereafter advertised in all 11 official languages in both national and regional newspapers. The committee received 1,550 individual submissions via the Dear South Africa website and 5 submissions from other stakeholders. In the committee meeting of the 17th of February 2021, The IEC responded to the submissions from stakeholders and proposed amendments to clause 8 and 20, having consulted the Information Regulator of South Africa regarding the protection of personal information of voters to ensure that the bill was in line with the provisions of the POPI Act. At this meeting, the committee had invited the Information Regulator as well as the Minister of Home Affairs to receive their inputs on the proposed amendments made by the IEC. Honorable Chair, the Information Regulator is an independent statutory body established in terms of Section 39 of the POPI Act and is accountable to the National Assembly. And the purpose of the POPI Act is to give effect to the constitutional right to privacy by safeguarding personal information when processed by a responsible party, subject to justifiable limitations that are aimed at balancing the right to privacy against other rights, particularly the right to access to information. The mandate of the Information Regulator is to protect personal information and ensure all public and private bodies that process personal information do so in compliance with the provisions of the POPI Act. With regard to the proposed amendments, the Information Regulator was of the view that the amendments strike the correct balance between privacy and access to information. The Minister of Home Affairs also clarified the committee on matters in relation to the redaction of the ID number in the proposed amendments. Honorable Chairperson, Section 16, subclause 2 within clause 8 of the Electoral Laws Amendment Bill B22B 2020 deletes the provisions regarding public access to the voters' roll. Furthermore, Section 16, subclause 5 allows the electoral officer discretion to redact any information on the voters' roll for the protection of personal information against unreasonable disclosure. Based on the substantive amendments, from the substantive comments received by stakeholders, the committee had detailed deliberations in respect of the amendment to clause 8. Much of the discussions were centered around the competing rights of access to information, in this case by election watchdogs or civil society organizations that monitor elections, and the right to privacy of voters as well as alignment to the POPI Act. Deliberations by the committee included, amongst others, that access to the voters' roll for legally permissible reasons will address access to information and may assist in promoting the integrity of the election processes. That there is a significant quantity of personal information of voters in the voters' roll, which includes the full names, identity numbers, and addresses. An ID number, which is a unique identifier in terms of the POPI Act, is considered sensitive personal information. Anyone who is in possession of any person's ID number is in possession of a very important aspect of personal information. Further considerations were that the voters' roll is needed to verify whether people on the roll are qualified to vote. In this respect, there are two broad constitutional qualifications in terms of being eligible to vote. That is the age of the voter and citizenship. The first 6 digits of the ID number are important to determine the age of a person, that is to ensure that the person is 18 years or older to qualify to vote. In addition, you have to be a citizen of the Republic, which the last 3 digits of the identity number can be used to verify this. Hence, the remaining digits of the ID number can be redacted. Furthermore, Parliament has to have laws that are not contradictory to the POPI Act. There are principles against which an assessment must be made by a public body for the legal processing of personal information to ensure that the disclosure of information is in line with the POPI Act. In this regard, Section 10 of the POPI Act speaks to the principle of minimality as follows. Personal information may only be processed if, given the purpose for which it is processed, it is adequate, relevant, and not excessive. The IEC also clarified that exceptional circumstances may require that additional digits of an ID number would be required if there may be allegations of fraud, if 2 voters have the same name or initial and date of birth, or if there is a prima facie case of fraud. On the 24th of February 2021, the committee further deliberated on matters and received the final draft of amendments to clause 8 and 20 from the Parliamentary Legal Advisor. Now, in order to strike a balance between the right to privacy and the right to access to information, the committee agreed that Section 16 subclause 2 be reinstated in the bill, which allows individuals to have access to the voters' roll for specific and predetermined purposes, such as to monitor the voters' roll for election purposes, for statistical or research purposes, or any other purpose that is prescribed, and subjected to the requirements of the POPI Act to safeguard the personal information of voters. And an insertion of Section 16 subclause 2A to ensure that any unlawful processing of personal information would be subject to a punishable offence in terms of the subsection proposed. Honourable Chairperson, in terms of the proposed amendment to Section 16 subclause 3 and 16 subclause 4, the amendment removes reference to political parties and replaces the terminology with registered party. This is to align with the definition in the Electoral Act, which defines a registered party and not a political party. Amendments to Section 16 subclause 5 clarifies the personal information that must be redacted on the voters' roll. The date of birth and citizenship will appear on the voters' roll, and the middle digits of the ID number will be redacted. Redaction of the ID number also addresses the principle of minimality in the POPI Act. The proposed amendments further clarifies that the CEO may disclose additional digits of the voters' roll in exceptional circumstances, and on an argument made that exceptional circumstances exist and which will be determined on a case-by-case basis by the Chief Electoral Officer, while taking into account that doing so will not involve the unlawful processing of personal information as required by the POPI Act. Honourable Chair, the final proposed amendment is to clause 20, which amends Section 47 of the Local Government Municipal Electoral Act. This is a technical drafting amendment that brings the bill in line with Section 38, subclause 8 of the Electoral Act, so as to create consistency on how voters without addresses on the voters' roll cast ballots on voting day. Honourable Chair, we believe these amendments address the delicate balance between the access to information and the protection of personal information of voters. It will further promote the integrity of the election processes and will make strides to stop the abuse of processing personal information of voters, particularly the ID numbers of voters, in ways that do not further enhance the electoral processes and practices. Honourable Chair, the Select Committee on Security and Justice, having considered the Electoral Laws Amendment Bill B22B2020, referred to it and classified by the JTM as a Section 75 bill, reports the bill, namely the Electoral Laws Amendment Bill, with proposed amendments for the Council's consideration. I thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Shaik. I now put the question. The question is that the bill, subject to proposed amendments, be agreed to. But before we proceed to voting, I shall allow parties the opportunity to make their declarations of vote in terms of Rule 63, if they so wish. And just to remind the honourable members that the maximum time allowed for declaration is 3 minutes. Any parties wishing to make the declarations?
Dear Chair,
get a sense of that. Let's start with the select.
I've raised my hand, Chair.
Yeah, Sileku, then Zandamela. And then
good morning, Chair.
The others, they raise their hands. So we'll start with Sileku.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you very much. Honourable Chairperson, the Electoral Laws Amendment Bill, which is mostly a technical bill, has brought into focus the importance of transparency. Transparency exists when the exercise of power and authority is made open to interrogation and oversight. Section 1D of the Constitution provides for universal adult suffrage, a national common voters' roll, regular election, and a multi-party system of democratic government to ensure accountability, responsiveness, and openness. This is why the Democratic Alliance asked for more time for the committee to lead to debate these amendments, to make sure that the credibility of our elections are not questioned and that there is no space for voter fraud. Unfortunately, Chairperson, the ANC was clearly in a rush to push this bill through, which is highly unfortunate as we believe that we still had time to debate on this bill. Clause 8, Section 16, subsection 5 represents a challenge, Chairperson. Hiding information of parts of the ID number on the voter's roll makes it impossible to pick up duplicate ID numbers. The IEC has committed to address this issue of double voting, which marred the 2019 elections. And by suppressing oversight mechanism to detect duplicate voting, adequate oversight is compromised. This is a right to which parties and role players should be fully entitled. Chairperson, transparency and accountability, therefore, cannot be guaranteed with the bill in its current format. We need to ensure electoral methods and processes that provide mechanisms to ensure that the fundamental right of voting is protected from manipulation. Honorable Chairperson, the Democratic Alliance therefore rejects this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Zandamela, EFF.
Thanks, Chairperson. The Electoral Laws Amendment Bill aims to enhance current legal provision to ensure that elections in South Africa are free and fair as provided for in our country's constitution. Through the amendment of 3 pieces of legislation, the Electoral Commission Act, the Electoral Act, and the Local Government Municipal Electoral Act, the bills seeks to ensure that we continue to strengthen the work of the Independent Electoral Commission. By aligning the Electoral Act with the Protection of Personal Information Act 4 of 2013, the bill aims to protect voters from unreasonable disclosure of their personal information. We have in the past expressed concerns regarding the protection of voter information on the voters' roll. When it comes to business of special votes, Chairperson, the EFF has made submissions that 1, we must legislate a specific time frame for parties to receive the list of special votes. Thus ensure that all parties receive the list on time. And secondly, we must also legislate consistent time for IEC officials with strict adherence to ensure transparency. No IEC officials under any circumstances should be allowed to conduct home visits for special votes without the party agents present. We welcome the provision to allow for voters to vote outside of their voting district, but also express concerns regarding the transparency, legitimacy, and credibility of the procedures that will be put in place to ensure voters do not vote more than once. To manage this, a list of those who have applied to vote outside of their voting districts would have to be made available to political parties' timers. The IEC also needs to manage the issue of voting stations that are constituted along racial lines and are inaccessible to members of the public, officials, and party agents, such as voting stations on farms where the EFF has been denied access previously. We are well aware of the abuse that farm workers are subjected to by farmers who view them as their property, and as such, forcing them to vote for their political parties, as in the farmers' political party. While we welcome the amendment of the Electoral Law Amendment Bill, more can be done to safeguard the fairness and transparency of our electoral system, to ensure that all South Africans can participate equally without fear of prejudice, and also ensure that the voters' personal information is protected before, during, and after the elections, in the form of any form of corruptions that happens with the elections should be rooted out. The EFF support this bill. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Ngwezi from the IFP. Ngwezi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, Nyambose, honorable members. Firstly, we want to say as the IFP that we support this bill. But our worry, Honorable Chair, is that if we must protect information of the citizens of this country, we must not only do it for election purposes by protecting only the information of voters of this country. I think as government, we have a duty to protect any information for all the citizens. And maybe government should also deal with the issue of the disclosure of identity numbers when entering any building in this country, since you know that even if you go to parliament, you must declare your identity numbers and all that. So that also, because we're going to stay with the coronavirus for more than a year, we are advised. Therefore, we cannot only protect it here for the purposes of elections, but we must also protect it in the entire country, even addressing this issue of the regulations of the COVID-19 pandemic, because citizens are actually forced to disclose their identity numbers in that regard. But therefore, the IFP, as I said, supports this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. ANC, Honorable Tebogo.
Sure, IFP.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chairperson, the ANC stands to support this important amendment to the Electoral Act. We think that this is very much critical because it will not only enable and assist the IEC to facilitate free and fair elections, but it will also ensure that our citizens exercise their political rights in a way that it is entrenched in the Constitution. And as the ANC, we stand to salute the IEC for its sterling work since the advent of our new democratic dispensation in 1994. It has held free and fair elections. It has demonstrated its independence. It has ensured that every system and process about our elections is watertight. And therefore, this amendment to the Electoral Act is seen as a way of consolidating that victory, is seen as a way of saying we need to ensure that as part of deepening democracy and enabling our people to exercise their right to vote freely, they must be protected in so many ways. And this bill seeks to achieve that particular objective. And I'm happy from the side of the ANC that the majority of the political parties here support this because it is important to enable the IEC to facilitate the elections which are coming in the next few months. Those who are opposing this are just demonstrating public spectacle. They want to play to the gallery. They want to derail us, and they want to create an impression in a body, in a Chapter 9 institution such as the IEC, that it is incapable to can deliver free and fair elections. We as members of parliament, especially from the ANC, we shall do everything in our power to ensure that we protect democracy, we protect the IEC, we move forward in terms of ensuring that as it conducts the elections, indeed those elections are free and fair. It is in that sense that as the African National Congress, we support this particular bill, and we're looking forward to engage and to confront political parties in the battlefield on the ground, because we believe that our people deserve better and they need to exercise their right in that particular sense. And the fight must be on the ground in terms of encouraging voters to vote and lobbying them to vote for their political parties. And as the African National Congress, we are confident of that. And those who oppose because they are scared of the elections. They are scared that their support is waning. And in that sense, as I indicated, Honorable Chair, as the African National Congress, we support this amendment to the bill. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. Having had the parties raising their ideas through the declaration of votes. We will now move on to and proceed to voting on the question. But before doing so, I'll allow 1 minute for delegates who are outside the virtual house to join the session. The minutes start now. "45 seconds left. "30 seconds left. "15 seconds left. "5 seconds left. Thank you very much. Please note that each delegate, including special delegates, have 1 vote. The question is, just to repeat again, the question is that the bill be agreed to. So we'll start with those delegates who wish to vote in favor. Please raise your hands and please keep them raised.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Mushodi, vote in favor.
Mushodi is
Vote in
noted.
favor, Chair.
Mushodi
Honorable
is
Mahlangu is voting in favor. Struggling here.
Mahlangu is noted.
Honorable Njadu, voting in favor. I'm struggling.
Njadu is noted.
Honorable Mama Rekhane, vote in favor.
Mamar Khan noted.
Honorable Cele is voting in favor.
Cele noted.
Honorable Malema voting in favor.
Mang.
Malema.
Honorable Malema. Okay. Is Malema on the platform?
Warina.
Okay.
Malema of the ANC.
Special delegate.
Warina.
Thank you very much.
Which Malema? Akheluga.
Okay.
Honorable Chairperson.
Enengas Khelo.
Honorable Ogam speaking.
Why are you all surprised?
Sorry.
Honorable Chairperson, it's Honorable Ogam speaking. There
Honorable
seems to be a
Ogam,
problem.
yeah.
I'm voting against.
Oh, no, no, we'll come back to that.
Wait, your turn, Oka.
Just concentrating now on those people who are voting in favor.
Voting in favor.
Okay.
Nyambos.
I'm sure the counting is now done. So
Nyambos.
ask the table to remove the
Nyambos.
lower hand. Sorry,
Nyambos.
Nyambos.
Cha ngokuthunywa amakhosi ngivotela ukuyisupport ibill.
Okay. No, siyabonga. Ngwezi is noted. Okay. Now the hands can be lowered. And we await the results. So Zanele. Yeah. We'll then move on to those delegates who wish to vote against. So please raise your hands and please keep them raised. Those voting against. Can you also hear those people who are outside of the system? Who are having problems, what wish to vote against, indicating.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Ocamp, I don't know whether my raise hand function is working. Please record a vote against for me.
It's working.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but Ocamp, your name appears already on the screen.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Okay. Any other person who's having a problem? No. Are we done with the counting? If we're done, we should then lower the hands. Allow the table to do that. Thank you very much. We now move to those who are abstaining. Can we have the hands raised and kept there on the raise your hand function? It doesn't seem like there are any hands who are abstaining from what I can see on the screen. We are now.
There's Labuskach's hand.
Where is it? It's not there.
Nchabeleng, order.
Nchabeleng.
Order. We will now move on then to declare the voting as closed and await the results. The results are as follows. In favor, 44.
Yes.
Against, 12. Against 12 and abstain 0. So the bill subject to proposed amendment is agreed to in terms of Section 75 of the Constitution. Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to the second order of the day, consideration of the report of Select Committee on Health and Social Services, appointment of the National Youth Development Agency, NYDA board members, dated the 9th of February 2021. I now call on Honorable M.N. Gillian, Chairperson of the Select Committee, to present the committee report. Honorable Gillian.
Chairperson, Deputy Chairperson, Chief Whip, honorable members, and all young people of South Africa, more when. On behalf of the Select Committee of Health and Social Services, I am mandated to table the report on the appointment process of the board members of the National Youth Development Agency. Chairperson, this year marks 25 years since President Mandela signed the new South African Constitution into law. The new Constitution was adopted, amongst other things, to provide a way for the nation to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. The building of a democratic society united in our diversity is not an event. It is rather a protracted process, fraught with contradiction and characterized by leaps forward and temporary setbacks. Those of us entrusted with leadership have a responsibility to stay the course and work with the young people of our country to pave the way to the better life for all South Africans. As background, I would like to remind the House that the subcommittee on the NYDA board members considered request by the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces to facilitate the process for the appointment of persons to serve on the board of the NYDA. The subcommittee resolved that 7 candidates would be recommended by the Portfolio Committee and the Select Committee to both Houses of Parliament to be appointed by the President to serve as board members in the NYDA for a period of 3 years. Both committees adopted their reports, which were published in the ATC of 4th August 2020. The National Assembly then considered the report of the Portfolio Committee on 3 September 2020 and resolved to return the report to the Portfolio Committee for further consideration. Thereafter, the Portfolio Committee, in a letter addressed to the Speaker on 13 October 2020, requested further guidance on how to proceed with the matter. Having considered the advice and legal opinion from the Speaker in a joint meeting of the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities and the Select Committee on Health and Social Services on 9 February 2021. In line with the National Assembly Rule 167E, the meeting resolved to restart the process afresh and present this recommendation to both Houses of Parliament. The appointment of the board of the NYDA is an important task in order to strengthen corporate governance and stability, for the agency, and Parliament remains committed to ensure this happens. It is important to highlight the fact that the NYDA remains one of the best performing organs of state. For example, in the 2019-2020 financial year, the NYDA, under its young leadership, achieved its 6th consecutive clean audit report, reinforcing the NYDA's commitment to good governance. Among the highlights of the many achievements of the agency, it has provided over 1,100 youth-owned enterprises in the township and rural economy with grant funding to start up their businesses throughout the NYDA grant program. These youth-owned enterprises have gone on to create and sustain more than 5,000 jobs. The ANC government remains committed to bring about radical socio-economic transformation through providing opportunities for young people. To this end, government has prioritized youth development, and the NYDA plays a crucial role in this regard. The NYDA must always be in line with the NYDA Act number 54 of 2008 and represent the demographics and geographical population of the youth of South Africa. Honorable Chairperson, I hereby request the House to consider and adopt this report. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Gillian. I now put the question. The question is that the report be agreed to. But before we proceed to voting, I shall now allow provinces the opportunity to make their declaration of vote in terms of Rule 71, if they so wish. And just to again repeat and emphasize that the maximum time allowed for a declaration to be made is 3 minutes. Any province wishing to make a declaration? I see Labuskachne's hand is up. She'll be followed by Honorable Malika. And Honorable Malika will be followed by Honorable Ngwezi. In that order. Labuskachne?
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, the Democratic Alliance welcomes the decision by Parliament to restart the National Youth Development Agency board appointment process after much public outcry across the country. The NYDA carries a significant development mandate for young people accompanied by a huge budget of almost 500 million, greater than some local municipalities in the country. It is vitally important that the agency is led by people with good vision and rectitude, inspiring confidence in the youth of this country that their interests will be protected and advanced. Some shortcomings of the previous process include an absence of diversity on demographics and geographic representativity of the proposed 7 names. The selection panel must be seized with these issues when the recruitment process gets underway once more. Transparency and openness should be central so as to assort any fears that the process is marred with dishonesty. This must include fair and unbiased scoring of interviewed candidates, which could entail the introduction of scoring immediately after each interview and then depositing the score sheet with auditors of the process. It is important that the responsible parliamentary officers provide adequate leadership and information through the promised terms of reference to guide the select panel in the execution of its work. After all, it is the leadership of this House through the Speaker that accepted calls to restart this process. The Democratic Alliance will participate in the process with an interest of ensuring that the NYDA assists young people across the country in ensuring that they become independent, fully developed individuals. We therefore support the process and hope that it will be done timelessly so as to ensure that young South Africans are not left in the cold without a board at an agency carrying so great a mandate on youth development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Labuschagne. Honorable Malika Mpumalanga.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, Honorable Chief Whip, Honorable members, let me declare from the onset that as Mpumalanga, we support the report of the Select Committee on Health and Social on the appointment of the NYDA board members dated 9 February 2021. We take heed of the advice and legal opinion received from the Speaker of the National Assembly on the NYDA appointment processes and the need to ensure an inclusive process that takes into consideration of the diversity of our nation. We want to commend the members of both the Select Committee on Health and Social Services and Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities on the work that they put in this process of the appointment of the NYDA board members, especially under most challenges conditions in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Honorable Chairperson, the NYDA process should serve as learning curve on the proper political management of joint matters of business between the houses. For us as the Mpumalanga province, we want to put proposal to examine the manner in which joint business is managed between the two houses, especially given our distinct mandates. We are hoping that this matter will find expression as we continue to reflect on how to improve in our efforts to implement and advance the mandate the NCOP of representing the interests of provinces. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I see Honorable Ngwezi's hand is up, and I acknowledge it even earlier on. Honorable Ngwezi, the problem is that you don't really represent the province, so your hand will not be accepted. So you won't be able to speak. Is there any other province that wishes to make a declaration? So we'll lower Honorable Ngwezi's hand. Thank you very much. We shall now proceed to voting on the question. And the question is that the report be agreed to. I now call upon the provinces to cast their votes on the order, and when called upon, heads of delegations must indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. And we'll do so, the voting in an alphabetical order. We'll start with the Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape?
Eastern Cape.
We vote. Thank you very much, Chair. We vote for the bill, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
The Eastern Cape is voting in favor.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The Free State?
Free State votes in favor, Honorable Chairperson.
Free State votes in favor. Gauteng?
Gauteng in favor, Honorable Chairperson.
Gauteng votes in favor. KwaZulu-Natal?
KwaZulu-Natal iyayiseka.
KwaZulu-Natal iyayiseka. Limpopo?
Limpopo vote in favor, Chairperson.
Limpopo is voting in favor. Thank you very much. Mpumalanga?
Impumalanga yayemukela sihlalo.
Mpumalanga yayemukela report. Thank you very much. Northern Cape?
Northern Cape vote in favor, Honorable Chair.
Northern Cape is voting in favor. Northwest?
Northwest vote in favor, Chair.
Northwest vote in favor. Thank you very much. Western Cape?
Western Cape support.
Western Cape supports the report. Voting is now closed. And all provinces have voted in favor of the report. I therefore declare the report adopted in accordance with Section 65 of the Constitution. Thank you very much. Honorable delegates, that concludes the business of the day. The House is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, KZN delegates.
Thank you.
Thank you, Limpopo.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Mpumalanga iyayeseka i-report.
Kunjalo ngeniyakwethu noSiluna-Natal.
uMzantsi Afrika wonke uyayisapota le report. Amandla.
Wethu. Honorable Zungu. Thank you.
Siyabonga.
Ralebuga.
Siyabulela. Sithokoze ngesikhethu.
Hakensa.
Bye.
Rikhulekwa ngama